This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
This episode is brought to you by FedEx. FedEx knows running a small business is hard enough without the hassle of shipping. That's why there's FedEx One Rate. With FedEx One Rate, you can ship your holiday packages cheaper than the post office for as low as $14.50 for small boxes. Visit FedEx.com/OneRate for details. Exclusions apply. Valid through January 19th, 2025. FedEx One Rate. 2-day retail shipping, one flat rate.
The founder of Panasonic once said,
"We can lead more meaningful and constructive lives
through the pursuit of activities that will ensure
a better today than yesterday,
a better tomorrow than today."
Panasonic is committed to creating a greener,
more equitable future for everyone.
Explore Panasonic Green Impact
at na.panasonic.com/green impact.
This episode contains subject matter that some listeners might find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised.
The bodies have been positively identified as Abigail J. Williams, 13, of the Delphi area, and Libby Rose Lynn German, 14, of the Delphi area.
On February 15th, 2017, the police in Delphi confirmed that Libby German and Abby Williams had been murdered. The news airs on all local channels.
The two girls were reported missing on Monday, February 13th. The bodies were discovered about 12:15 on the 14th in the woods just east of town here by volunteers that helped in the search of the children after they were reported missing to the Carroll County Sheriff's Department. Family has been notified. This is considered a double homicide investigation. No further information will be released at this time.
And now, authorities are fully focused on piecing together the girls' movements during their final hours. It is known that they arrived at the trails near Monon High Bridge around 1:30 p.m. on February 13th. Libby posts a Snapchat at 2:07 p.m. showing Abby posing on the bridge. In other words, both girls are still alive at that point. It is also known that Libby used her phone at 2:15 p.m. And we'll get back to how they know this soon. But it's not just about knowing when the girls used their phones. It's also crucial to identify who else was out by the bridge that afternoon. They may have seen the girls, or even the person who killed them. Slowly, authorities start to paint a picture of who was in the area near the bridge that afternoon. At the start of the trail where Monon High Bridge is located, there's another bridge that crosses over the highway. It's called Freedom Bridge, and just before 1:30 p.m., a 16-year-old girl is there with some friends. She sees a man moving towards the woods. He's wearing a dark blue jacket, jeans, and possibly a cap under a hood. The 16-year-old greets the man, who gives her a look she describes as unsettling or scary. He's heading into the woods towards the railroad bridge, while the girl and her friends are walking in the opposite direction. This happens around 1:30 p.m., just under 10 minutes before Libby and Abby say goodbye to Libby's older sister, Kelsi. A couple in their 20s is also nearby. They park at the same clearing where Kelsi drops the girls off, and they walk onto one of the trails leading to the bridge. During their walk, they start arguing, and the man from the couple remembers someone passing by them during this time. A man wearing a cap, he says. He doesn't remember a hood or any other details. The woman from the couple doesn't remember the man at all. It's also unclear what time this couple arrives at the trail. Later, around 2:45 p.m., another woman named Cheyenne is on one of the trails heading towards Monon High Bridge. She tells police she walks across the bridge from the north side to the south side, then turns back. There's no way forward on the south side of the bridge. No trail continues, just dense forest in every direction. Cheyenne doesn't see anyone on or near the bridge during her walk. Finally, Libby's father, Derek, begins his search for the girls around 3:15 p.m., and he too encounters a man on the trail.
It's a man with a flannel shirt on. This guy ends up being someone who's he's a trail maintenance guy out there. He asked the guy if he's seen any girls. The guy said no recently, but he said he saw a couple on the bridge.
Yes, the man who works with maintenance in the area says that he saw 2 girls on the bridge.
So at this point, Derek's like, he keeps walking around looking for him, like figuring, again, I don't think he's that worried at that point. I don't think I would be. I mean, he's just trying to find his daughter because she's walking around in the woods and he doesn't know where she is.
The police get in touch with this man, who at no point is considered a suspect in the girls' deaths. However, he did see a couple of girls on the bridge shortly before Derek arrives in the area. So now, we have a small map of the people who were in the woods around the same time as Libby and Abby. We have the 16-year-old girl who notices a man in a blue jacket. Then there's the arguing couple, where the man notices someone, possibly the same person the 16-year-old saw. After that, we have Cheyenne, who is on the bridge nearly 30 minutes after Libby posts the Snapchat, showing Abby on the bridge. Cheyenne doesn't see or hear anyone at all. In other words, if all these testimonies are accurate, a few things are already clear at this early stage of the investigation. It's known that Libby and Abby disappeared sometime between 2:07 p.m. and 2:45 p.m. We know that they were found around 800 meters away. And we know that there's a man wearing a cap, a blue jacket, and jeans who hasn't contacted the police, but was seen heading in the direction where the girls were. He's someone the police really want to speak with.
Police want to talk to the man because he was on the trail about the same time as the victims.
This is the story of 2 young girls, of an idyllic, free, and safe place in America's heartland where something horrifying happens. A crime that shakes an entire town and changes it forever. And about how this tragedy is still unfolding today. You are listening to The Delphi Murders, a 4-part documentary about the search for the man on the bridge. My name is Jonathan Rollins, and if you like this series, be sure to follow us so you'll be notified when new episodes are released, and you can listen to our other series. This is Chapter 2, Down the Hill. The puzzle we talked about earlier, the police already have a pretty clear picture of on the afternoon of February 15th. Of course, they've been piecing things together since they were first alerted about the girls being missing on the afternoon of February 13th. But the investigation naturally escalated once it was confirmed that the girls had been murdered. However, they still don't know who the man in the blue jacket is. And sometimes, the best way to get information you need is simply to ask people. So on February 15th, the same day the police confirmed that Abby and Libby have been murdered, they hold a press conference. Here, the police show a picture of the man in the blue jacket and jeans. He appears to be a large man, broad-shouldered or perhaps slightly overweight. He's wearing a cap or hood, with his head lowered, and he's walking on the old railroad bridge, heading toward the camera that took the picture. This isn't a composite sketch. It's a pixelated, poorly resolved photograph.
We've been able to identify almost everybody else that's been on that trail, and this gentleman has not been identified, and we want to know what he saw, what he might have seen on the trail. Did he see somebody else that maybe some of the others didn't see?
They don't say that he's a suspect, just that he's someone they believe has important information. But everyone in Delphi immediately understands that this must be the man who murdered the girls. And the people in town have one question of their own. How on earth do the police have a picture of the suspect?
They basically released a photo that day of a man that they said was seen on the trail, and he's got his hands in his pockets, he's wearing jeans, he's got like a navy blue jacket. He looks like a middle-aged dude, like kind of like a little portly, but not out of shape.
This is Brian Whitney. He's an author and has previously worked on prison reform in the U.S. He's also written a book about the Delphi case. Now, he describes the man in the photo that the police released to the public.
Kind of guy you might see in like a middle class, like working town in Indiana. So they don't call him a suspect, but they say they'd like to talk to him. It's old school police work and the concepts of like, oh, maybe if we don't call him a suspect, like maybe this guy will be like, oh yeah, hey, like I was there, and he'll come in and explain, like maybe he'll have a good reason.
At this point, there is still some optimism in Delphi. Most people assume that the photo comes from a trail camera or something similar. One of those cameras set up in trees that automatically takes pictures when it detects motion. However, since almost everyone in Delphi is familiar with the hiking trails, most people know that there aren't any such cameras set up on the bridge. Still, many remain hopeful. Because no matter how they got the picture, it must be an incredible advantage for the police. After all, how often do you get a photo of the suspect? It's certainly noteworthy.
The founder of Panasonic once said,
We can lead more meaningful and constructive lives
through the pursuit of activities that will ensure
a better today than yesterday,
A better tomorrow than today.
Panasonic is committed to creating a greener,
more equitable future for everyone.
Explore Panasonic Green Impact
at na.panasonic.com/green impact.
The NBA Cup is about to be captured.
Puts it up half court of the buzzer. Bang!
And the last team standing are in Vegas for the final showdown.
Heating up here in Vegas.
It's time to go all in on the hardwood, because only one team can pull off the heist for this in-season title. Winner take all. The Emirates NBA Cup semifinals Saturday on ABC and TNT.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
In the following week, the man in the photo becomes known as Bridge Guy or the Bridge Man. However, days pass without anyone able to identify the person in the image. Even though there's a photo, there are issues. First off, the image is pixelated and unclear. There's another problem as well. The only thing that's really discernible in the image is that Bridge Guy is wearing a blue jacket, jeans, and appears to be a somewhat stocky white man. This body type and those clothes match many men in Delphi and the surrounding area. In other words, the photo could be of almost anyone. By February 22nd, a week has passed since the public first saw the image, but no progress has been made in identifying him. So another press conference is scheduled. One of the first things to happen is that Doug Carter, head of the state police, pleads for tips, no matter how small or insignificant they might seem.
Each and every person listening, watching, or seeing this in some form, we need you. Libby and Abby need you. Please do not rationalize tips away. Rationalize what you think that might not be important away. By thinking he would never do that to another human being. Or think, what I know doesn't matter. Let folks like the people that are standing behind me with such incredible passion and commitment and dedication to this profession make that determination.
As you can hear, Carter is deeply invested, and he makes no attempt to hide how emotionally affected he is by the case. But aside from Carter's tone, these kinds of statements aren't uncommon in a murder investigation. What happens next, however, is what causes this tragic case to go viral and become known far beyond the fields and forests of northern Indiana. Now, the police decide to reveal a few things that no one could have anticipated.
They did announce that it was taken by Libby on her phone. Then they did say they thought it was a suspected killer.
The picture of the bridge guy doesn't come from some trail camera. It came from Libby German's phone. Libby has actually taken a photo of the man who would likely end up murdering her and her best friend just moments later. But that's not all. When Doug Carter wraps up, another officer steps up to the podium, and he calmly and methodically explains that Libby's actually done more than just take a picture of this bridge guy.
We do have some new information for you today. It's in the form of an audio file from the cell phone that Libby German had with her at the time.
Libby's managed to record Bridge Guy's voice, and this is something no journalist in the room has likely ever seen before. A victim in a murder case who's captured so much crucial evidence before their death.
We're not going to play everything that we have, but Liberty had the presence of mind to turn on her video camera. Again, we're not going to be able to share everything with you, but we are going to share this audio clip with you momentarily.
It's a short clip, not even 4 seconds long. We'll play it now and loop it a couple of times so you can make out the words.
Downhill. Downhill. Downhill.
This is, in all likelihood, the man who abducts and then murders Libby and Abby that you just heard saying, "Down the hill." This is extremely unusual. For a victim in a murder case to capture both a photo and a recording of the man suspected of killing her and her best friend. And tips start coming in to the police. We don't know exactly when, but at some point during the early stages of the investigation, they start to focus on a man named Ron Logan. He lives very close to where the girls were found. The bodies were even found on land he owns. And it turns out, sometime during the spring of 2017, that he lied about his alibi.
There's 3 reasons that law enforcement jumped on him right off the bat. One is that they were found like about 1,400 feet from his house. You know, the girls were found like right, relatively near like where he worked. 2, some of his ex-girlfriends said he was violent. And lastly, he asked his cousin to lie for him that day and say where he was at the time period that the girls were killed.
Monday afternoon, I was in Lafayette Aquarium World getting tropical fish for my aquarium. So when I came home, one of the neighbors stopped and asked permission to come back here and look for the missing girls, and that's the first time I knew anything about it. So I fooled with my tropical fish the whole time that the search was going on Monday night. Then they didn't find them until Tuesday, and around noon or 1 or whatever it was.
That's Ron Logan himself you're hearing, just a few days after the girls were found near his house. He claims he was in the city of Lafayette, buying tropical fish. As Brian clarifies, he says in a statement to the police that his cousin drove him there. But that's not true. He drove there himself. And while that might sound innocent enough, in a case like this, anybody who lies to the police is someone worth looking into more closely.
Investigators believe Logan asked his cousin to lie about driving him to an aquarium store in Lafayette on the afternoon of February 13th. Police arrested Logan for violating his probation on charges of DUI and driving on a suspended license.
Logan is, to make matters worse, on parole at this time. And now he's arrested for violating the terms of his parole. You see, one of the conditions is that he's not allowed to drive on his own. But just a few days later, March 14th, there's a tweet from local law enforcement. They say that they no longer consider Logan a suspect in the murder case, only in the parole violation. If that had been the end of it, we wouldn't be mentioning Ron Logan at all in this series. But it's not the end of it. A few days after this tweet, the FBI filed a search warrant for Ron Logan's home. When police hand in an affidavit like this to a judge, they have to explain why they want to search the property. And the agent writing the application certainly makes it clear they're taking this very seriously.
But a search warrant filed by an FBI agent 3 days later, March 17th, says, "I believe there is probable cause to believe that Ronald Logan has committed the crime of murder, and evidence of that can be found on Ronald Logan's property."
As you can hear in that clip from internet channel Wish TV, the FBI suspect they'll find something in Logan's home that connects him to the murders. And that's in direct contrast to what local police said just a few days earlier. I know, it's confusing. But in March of 2017, the FBI get permission to search Logan's home. They find a large collection of firearms. But it's not uncommon in the U.S. for someone to own multiple guns. And despite the guns, it seems the FBI don't find what they're looking for. Ron Logan isn't named a suspect in the murders at any point after the police search his home. However, he does end up going to prison for parole violation. The spring of 2017 goes on without any arrest at all for the murders of Abby and Libby. And as you can imagine, this doesn't sit well with the people of Delphi. Most of them can't understand what's taking so long. Cops have a photo as well as audio of the killer. And there are only about 3,000 people in this town. How hard can it be to go through all of them? Many are also reacting to something the police said more than once during that press conference on February 22nd, the one where they played the audio clip from Libby's phone. Several of the officers speaking there mentioned that they had more information than they were revealing to the public. In other words, they might know even more about the killer. And now, people are eager to know more, because what they've heard so far from the police is, in a way, both confusing and revealing at the same time.
Like, one was that they were refusing to give out any information. That's irritated people, but I think people might be able to understand that. Then it was also that they had all this like physical evidence, like an actual photo of the dude. It's not a clear photo, but it's still, you can see his build, you can see what he was wearing. It's a small town. And so I think the combination of them not giving out any more information combined with the information that they did give out was an actual photo of the person that did it.
It's certainly easy to understand why the people of Delphi are confused. If the cops have a photo, eyewitness accounts, even a voice recording, it's not surprising that many are wondering how difficult it really can be to catch the killer. But apparently, it's more complicated than they thought. And if that's the case, why not give the public the best chance possible to help out? Why not share everything they have on the suspect? This is when speculation starts to spiral more and more. People speculate about who the killer might be. No big surprise there. But they also speculate on what else the police are sitting on. That audio clip, for example, it's only a couple of seconds long. Many believe it might be longer, that there could be more out there that could reveal who the killer is or how the girls were murdered. After all, the police still haven't revealed that. There's also uncertainty about whether there was anything particularly notable about the crime scene. Many assume there must have been, based on the application that the FBI sent to the judge when they wanted to search Ron Logan's home. In that application, it states that large amounts of blood were found at the crime scene. Let's hear more from the internet channel Wish TV.
The agent says a large amount of blood was lost by the victims at the crime scene. The agent also says authorities found that 2 articles of clothing from one of the girls was missing from the crime scene, while the rest of their clothing was recovered. It also appeared the girls' bodies were moved and staged.
A lot of blood, missing clothes, bodies that have been moved and staged in some way. These are details that hadn't been known before. Many online forums are going to town with this. Every day, some new self-appointed expert pops up with their very own theories about what happened and who did it. All of these people criticizing the police for sharing too little information. Well, in June of 2017, their prayers are answered because now the police release a composite sketch of the killer.
They obviously got enough from witness statements to create a sketch of the person that they claimed to be Bridge Guy. And the sketch that they created did look similar facially in the hat to the photo that was taken on the bridge.
The new sketch comes with a more detailed description of the suspect. A white man, 5'6" to 5'10", hefty, 180 to 220 pounds, with reddish-brown hair. The first new lead police have made public in months is giving some relief and encouragement to a community still hurt and scared.
This composite sketch shows a middle-aged man. As you heard in the clip from Channel 13, it's a somewhat stocky guy with reddish-brown hair. He's got large cheeks, a thin beard on his chin and upper lip, a cap, and short hair. The eyebrows are quite defined, and his nose is pretty meaty. Local Channel 13 visits Libby German's grandfather, Mike, to hear what he thinks about this sketch. And he's very clear about what he thinks is at stake now.
Whoever knows this person, please call it in right now. Let's get this done before some other kid, other family member, somebody gets hurt out there. This person's already taken 2 little girls from this world. It could be yours. It could be your neighbors. It could be somebody you know. Let's get it done.
You could easily see how this could be the same man seen in the photo from Libby's phone. But the question a lot of people are asking is, why hasn't this sketch been released earlier? At this point, it's been 4 months since the murders. Does this mean the police have new witnesses who've described Bridge Guy in much more detail? But the police won't answer that, so we don't know why the composite sketch took so long to come out. And the people of Delphi, by the summer of 2017, still don't know whether new witnesses have come forward or if the police have discovered new clues. And above all, they still don't know who in their town murdered 2 young girls. And this uncertainty is still something they have to live with for a long time. Days turn into weeks. Seasons change multiple times. And the murders of Libby and Abby remain unsolved. In their search for the killer, the police began to look into increasingly unlikely individuals. One of these is an unemployed pastor named Thomas Bruce.
The church he was running had lost its following. He goes into the religious store. There's a customer and 2 employees inside. He goes back out to his car. He gets a gun, forces them into a back room, sexually assaulted 2 of them. 1 woman tried to fight back, and he shot her in the head and he killed her.
Yes, this man of the cloth walks into a store, one selling religious items, and forces 2 women in the store to engage in sexual acts at gunpoint. When the 3rd woman tries to resist, he murders her.
The other 2 witnesses that lived obviously could describe him. Cops went around, talked to some people at a local bar. He'd been drinking there. It turns out he'd left a business card there. So it wasn't too hard to find him.
No, it wasn't too hard tracking down this out-of-work reverend. This disturbing story takes place in 2018. And because the perpetrator kidnaps his victims, police start looking at him in connection with the Delphi case as well.
Today, and because of what police in St. Louis call some similarities, officers reached out to the murderers about the murders in the Delphi of those 2 teenage girls in February of 2017.
The murderous priest can quickly be ruled out as a suspect. The same goes for a man named Daniel Nations.
There was a biker named Earl Watkins who went missing. And basically, he was shot with a .22 caliber bullet. Daniel Nations had that sort of gun found in his trunk of his car. Threatened to kill somebody with a hatchet. He was just basically a nutty dude. They used to hang out in the woods, camp a lot, and a man turned up dead, and he was a suspect.
So this Daniel Nations is a suspect in another murder case in Colorado. But he lives in Indiana for long stretches of time, and not too far from Delphi. However, he's never convicted in connection to the Colorado case. And also, that case isn't very similar to the double homicide in Delphi. So, after a quick once-over, police stopped looking into Nations. And it's hard to imagine how this uncertainty affects the people of Delphi. For Abby and Libby's families, it's obviously horrible in many different ways. Their daughters have been taken from them in a violent and unfair way. The person or persons responsible are still out there. It's got to be absolute torture for the families. But the fact is, this murder actually rattles the entire town of Delphi.
Obviously, after the murders, the town was basically in shock. A whole bunch of people, hundreds, gathered to pay their respects. There was a day of mourning.
We mentioned at the start of the last episode that Delphi is a town with good schools, friendly neighbors, and a fundamental trust between the people who live there. It's typical small-town America, but this all changes when Libby and Abby disappear on February 13th, 2017. After that, Delphi is another town altogether, a place where people might look at each other with suspicion, wondering if their neighbor is really telling the truth. And a lot of doors that used to be left unlocked aren't anymore.
And I know so many people were just basically this doesn't happen here. This doesn't happen in Delphi. This isn't, our town isn't like this. People who said the innocents have been lost forever of the town.
And it's not just Brian who thinks the town is different. Emily Longnecker from local channel WTHR has been following this case since the beginning. She sums up the change she's noticed in Delphi over the past few years.
these murders changed this community, that this went from a town, this is a small, quaint bedroom community where people often used to sleep with their doors unlocked, and that's how they felt about things, and they didn't mind letting their children go to walk in the woods on the Monon High Bridge. But if you talk to young people here today that are around the ages that Libby and Abby would be, they will tell you that things changed for them as teenagers after the girls were murdered, that their parents suddenly were not willing to just let them go and have kind of a freedom. They wanted to know, where they were and to check in all the time. And they just, life really, really changed for them as young people, certainly. I've heard that over and over. And then the community as a whole.
Next time on the Delphi Murders, an emotional chief of police speaks directly to the killer.
To the murderer. I believe you have just a little bit of a conscience left.
Who continues to elude the police.
Directly to the killer, who may be in this room. We know that this is about power to you, and you want to know what we know. And one day, you will.
The investigation takes a new direction.
For more than 2 years, you never thought we would shift gears to a different investigative strategy, but we have.
And the town of Delphi finally receives the news they've been waiting for years, but no one dares to believe it.
Breaking tonight, the first glimpse of answers we've been waiting on for 5 years. Police just announcing an arrest today in the unsolved Delphi murders.
Right now, here at 13 News, we're digging into the man that police arrested.
You've listened to the second episode of the Delphi Murders, narrated by me, Jonathan Rollins. The audio clips you've heard in this series come from WTHR, Channel 13, Wish TV, Court TV, Carroll County, Indiana, WLFI TV, CBS, Merritt Street Media, Fox, NBC, WRTV Indianapolis, ABC, and the Indiana State Police. This series is produced in collaboration with Brian Whitney. Written and produced by Carl Hager. Sound design and mix by Christopher Kronander. The executive producer is Tove Freeman Leffler. The series is produced by PodLit. And if you enjoy it, don't forget to follow Crime by PodLit, and you'll get updates as soon as we release another episode. Thank you for listening.